Good evening, it's Ryan Borgwardt, State Hello, and today is November 11th. It's approximately 10 a.m. by safe, secure.
In a surprising twist to a baffling case, a Wisconsin father who allegedly faked his own death has now sent authorities a video confirming he is alive and safe and possibly in Europe. The video has raised even more questions about his disappearance and what is next for the man who left behind his family and a costly search effort. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Well, it is certainly a shocking new twist in an already shocking case. A Wisconsin man who allegedly staged his own death 3 months ago, leaving his family, devastated, has been in regular communication with authorities. Yeah, he even sent them a video confirming he was safe and sound. What is this? I mean, we brought you this case in a previous episode of Sidebar when we had just learned that 45-year-old father of three, husband, Ryan Borgwardt, allegedly staged his own death after disappearing in August under very suspicious circumstances. Borgwardt left behind his kayak and belongings in Wisconsin's Green Lake, leading authorities to believe that he had drowned. But after weeks of intense searching and also a digital forensics investigation, authorities discovered what could be the chilling truth, that Borgwardt instead had left the country to go to Eastern Europe, where he's now apparently holed up in an undisclosed location. And by the way, I gotta say, I think with the content that we cover here on Sidebar many times, it just goes to show you how important personal safety is. And that is especially true when you think about protecting your privacy online. I think you'd be shocked at how much of your personal information is out there, like your address and your phone number. Do you ever wonder why you get so many spam calls and emails? That's because all that information is public. But that is where our sponsor Incogni comes in. It is a service that helps you take control of your online privacy by removing your personal data from data brokers, these huge companies that sell and trade your information without your permission. And here's the kicker. These data brokers have to remove you from their database if you ask them to. Now, if you're thinking, I don't have time to call a data broker, well, again, that's where Incogni comes in. They contact these companies for you to get your online safety back. You don't have to do a thing. And then they alert you after the request has been completed. So I highly recommend giving Incogni a try. And right now, they have a Black Friday deal where anyone who uses code SIDEBAR at incogni.com/sidebar gets 60% off of an annual Incogni plan. Hope you can check it out. So to break all this down, I want to bring on criminal defense attorney Sarena Townsend. Sarena, good to see you again. It's been a minute since we've had you on Sidebar, and what did I think? What better case to bring you on to talk about one of the most bizarre stories I've heard in quite some time. Just overall, overall just thoughts on this. The shock when we talk about a father who's still alive and now apparently communicating with police. I mean, what a twist.
Horrible. First of all, I would sum this up to say this is the worst midlife crisis I have ever seen in my life.
Not to make light of it, but yeah.
Because it's crazy. Look, it's bad enough for a man to abandon his family. It's really quite awful. And the victims here are really his wife and children and anybody else who actually cares for this man. But then to do so in such a horrible way, to make them think that you've died, only to resurface and cooperate with police and then make it clear that you don't want to come home. It's worse. It's almost worse than death for this family to have to go through this. It's just so terrible and emotional. So yeah, it is bizarre.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about this video. So there's this news conference that was held this week where the Green Lake County Sheriff played a 24-second video sent or seemingly sent by Ryan Borgwardt earlier this month, where he can be heard quietly confirming that he's alive and well. And I should tell you, we tried to boost the audio a little bit, but here you go.
Good evening, it's Ryan Borgwardt, State Hello, and today is November 11th. It's approximately 10 a.m. by safe, secure.
Now, at this time, he is keeping his location a secret. As for why he sent this video to police, that has to do with the forensic investigation that police conducted on a laptop that they received from Borgwardt's wife. Last time we brought you this story, we mentioned that he'd apparently been in contact with some woman in Uzbekistan. Well, authorities, they dug into communications on that laptop and they made contact with this Russian-speaking woman who put them in touch with Ryan Borgwardt. Don't know for sure if that is the same woman in question that he had been talking to, but police then asked him questions to confirm it was really him, and then they asked him for a video. So that's what they got. Now, Sarena, let me bring you in on this, because if he wanted to disappear, again, why would he be communicating with police?
It's really strange. I don't know why he would. And in fact, I would have advised him not to, because he might be facing, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure, some criminal charges. And as a criminal defense attorney, my first thing that I tell clients or potential clients is do not speak with police, especially if you could be a suspect in a crime. So I don't know why he would ever do that. I think obviously the police have a good reason to want to speak to him, to check for signs of life, to check to see if he's there voluntarily, or is this a mission where they have to, extract him from a location because he was kidnapped or he's in danger?
Yeah.
Very strange.
Because you also imagine if you really wanted to pick up and start a new life, why seemingly fake your death? If the goal is, hey, listen, I don't want my family to think I'm dead, then why did you allegedly make it look like you're dead? Why didn't you just say, I'm leaving, I'm going to Eastern Europe, bye everybody? I don't get it. Like you want to make, again, taking all the allegations is true, either you want to fake your death and make it look like you died, but now you're kind of reversing course after all the effort you made to make it look like you died. I'm confused.
Yeah, I think this is a man in crisis. I think he made some really, really bad decisions that he thought were good decisions. And I think that after that high wore off, and maybe perhaps he saw that they were not stopping to try to track him down, he made some sort of statement that he thought they would search for him for 2 weeks and then give up. I think he might have started to feel like he was going to get caught anyway. They were going to find him anyway. In today's day and age, it's not like the 70s and the 80s. You can be so easily tracked, your phone, your computer. So maybe he just realized the gig is up. I'm going to get
Yeah.
caught. I might as well just come out.
Can you tell where he is in this video? And let me couple that with this. Can you, not like where his location is. What I'm saying. I mean, do you think they're going to be able to tell where he is just from that background? But also I'm wondering, did he specifically take that video in a different location from maybe where he's staying?
Right. I mean, if he's really still trying to elude the police, he might have gone elsewhere. And it depends on what device he used to make that video. So if he used his own cell phone, they can get a warrant for that phone and conduct, it's called a trap and trace warrant, and a pen register. And basically they can triangulate his location based on the signals of that cell phone and what towers it's pinging off of. So it depends on the device he uses, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility that they could track him via that device.
Now, it's not just the fact that his location is a mystery. We also don't know if he plans to come home to be with his family.
Our primary judicial concern has been that he safely gets back to U.S. soil. He needs to return home to his children. If he chooses not to return, it's on his own free will. And I think the message is very clear. We have been continuing to contact the family members regarding our communication with Ryan. No warrants have been issued yet. We believe that warrants will not be needed if Ryan cooperates and decides to turn and return home soon.
Doesn't look like he's planning on coming home, right? And even if, I don't know if it's to start a new life, to be with maybe a woman, you wonder, was this the way to go about it? But doesn't look like he plans to come home, right?
It doesn't. It looks like the police have been really kind of begging him to come home, pulling at his heartstrings, as they were saying, to try to convince him to come back. And it feels like if he had wanted to come back, he would have, especially since he's already now confirmed that he's alive. So
Yeah.
again, I think he's a man in crisis.
So let me ask you this. He could be facing some pretty hefty consequences if he's found or he returns to the country. I'll get to that in a minute. But you heard the sheriff talk about a warrant. What would a warrant look like here? How would it work?
People, like I mentioned before, they want to try to locate somebody. They could try to, get a warrant to get a person, to find that person. Also, they want to potentially search through his devices. And people are entitled to their privacy, and a law enforcement officer has to get proof that there might be something uncovered that would help in an investigation that a judge has to approve of before they could go in to somebody's home or into somebody's devices, because that is, you know, private and it's covered. So they may be looking just for more clues by getting those warrants issued.
I want to give everybody a little bit of backstory here. So Borgwardt's disappearance, it set that family into a literal tailspin because in August he was reported missing after his kayak was found capsized in Green Lake. Authorities discovered his vehicle was still parked along with a fishing rod, tackle box, personal items like his driver's license, his keys. For weeks, search teams scoured the lake with divers, sonar boats. There was a nonprofit group that was dedicated to finding drowning victims. They became a part of it. And the investigation then took this sharp turn when authorities analyzed the laptop that belonged to Borgwardt's wife. And what they discovered was an entire digital footprint that he left behind. Forensic experts found evidence of financial transactions, including money that was apparently moved into a foreign bank account, the purchase of an online or an airline gift card. And even though he had apparently gone to great lengths to try to wipe his footprint, removing the laptop's hard drive, clearing his browser history, even changing his email address, authorities still established this contact that he had with this Russian-speaking woman that we mentioned earlier. Well, apparently, in communications with police, Borgwardt actually expressed remorse for the pain that his actions have caused, which, like you said, Sarena, kind of goes into this midlife crisis he might be having. But I have to talk more about the family here because they have to go through these stages of grief. First, they're grieving thinking he died, and now they have to accept that he's alive. But when you look at this digital footprint here, I wonder, was there any way that they could have found out what he was doing beforehand?
Right. And I mean, this is all going to go to his state of mind, whether this is, criminally prosecuted or even just for his family to take in and overcome. He planned this and he planned it pretty meticulously. I guess he thought he'd be able to get away with it by removing that hard drive. He understood then that there was a potential digital footprint there. He just didn't go far enough or didn't recognize that, yeah, you can still get tracked even if you take a hard drive with you. But it's really devastating for the family because it just goes to show that it wasn't exactly on a whim. It showed that he had really taken steps to plan this out and to try to not be found.
You talked about planning. There's another bizarre piece of this is how detailed he got with police about what he did, about his plan, because in this recent communication he had with them, he revealed how he actually carried out this escape.
He stashed an e-bike near the boat launch. He paddled his kayak in a child-sized floating boat out into the lake. He overturned the kayak and dumped his phone in the lake. He paddled the inflatable boat to shore and got on his e-bike and rode through the night to Madison. In Madison, he boarded a bus and went to Detroit and then the Canadian border. He continued on the bus to an airport and got on a plane.
And they say, of course, they're going to verify that information, verify that story. But Sarena, my gosh, if true, unbelievable. That effort, that commitment, that plan.
He wanted to be gone and he wanted nobody to find him. And he only had a few miscalculations. It really feels like he he could have potentially gotten away with it if not for those few missteps. Number one being that he thought that nobody would care enough about him to continue this search, which is kind of sad in its own way, because maybe that's why he left. And maybe now he's realizing, gee, I guess they really do care about me. And then, of
Wow.
course, misunderstanding the digital footprint stuff.
Why reveal all this? Again, it's incriminating himself. And we'll get to these potential criminal charges in a second. But if they back it up and say, yeah, he took the boat, he took the e-bike, he took the bus, he took all these travel records. If they could back it up, why is he incriminating himself like this?
He may not realize the extent of where this goes. He may just be thinking that, all right, I've been found out. Let me at least, reveal how I did it, because I don't want to be lying to police. I don't really know what his mindset is, but he might just be extremely scared, and he might just feel like I might as well just say it all.
Why would he be scared? Okay, well, let's talk about it. Because as for the ramifications that he could face, they are very serious, according to the sheriff.
The information that the Green Lake County has at this point leads us to an obstructing charge. What he did on the lake, staging his death. I cannot comment on the federal charges that may or may not be filed through our federal partners. The second one, and one of the big, most important one, was regarding the amount that Green Lake County will be seeking for restitution. It's in the area of $35,000 to $40,000. These costs do not include what Bruce's legacy did, or our divers, Charlie DeGroot. We're looking at about $7,000 in equipment expenses, that along with the wages.
Okay, so Sarena, let's break this down. Ramifications legally. What constitutes an obstruction charge under Wisconsin state law? How would it apply here?
So it actually is not that simple to apply to this situation. A lot of places have sweeping obstruction charges where if you do something like this, it would kind of, force police to do things that they shouldn't really have to be spending their energy and money and time on. You could go down for that. In Wisconsin, it almost feels like he's one step away from a crime. They're going to have to prove that he made police do this. And because he didn't, the argument is that he did, right? But really, the family wanted to look for him. The family encountered the police and brought them on, and the family wanted the police to investigate. And so maybe there's some sort of argument that it doesn't apply. But
let me press you on that. Let me press you on that a little bit, because I looked into the statute, and it says what obstructs means includes without limitation knowingly giving false information to the officer. I don't think that applies here because he didn't have prior communication with police, and he seems to be forthcoming. This is where I think it might get him. Or knowingly placing physical evidence with intent to mislead the officer in the performance of his or her duty, including the service of any summons or civil process. So he creates a fake crime scene, intent to mislead. I feel like that's what we could be talking about here now.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important for police to elicit all of the specifics of what he did, because you have to go to his, what we call mens rea, his state of mind. Did he do this intentionally? That is, set up this false crime scene, this fake evidence. And did he appreciate and recognize what that would have meant? His statement where he said, I thought they would only search for me for 2 weeks, seems to, kind of elicit that in his mind, he did think that police would be misled. He did think that police would be involved. So I do agree that this separate part of the Wisconsin statute is where they're probably going to laser focus. And all of these statements that he's making is not helping his case at all.
I saw this as a Class H felony, which I think carries up to 6 years in prison. I don't know if you saw something different, but if this actually, he gets arrested, he gets tried, whether he's convicted or takes a plea deal. I mean, we're really talking far down the line because there's a lot of hoops that would have to come for him to, to be arrested for this. You think that he would get prison for this? You think he'd get up to 6 years in prison for this?
Oof. That's a really good question. We see all of the time certain charges could be met with a maximum of X amount of years in prison. Very rarely is it so that a person gets that maximum amount of time, particularly if they don't have a prior criminal history. Here, I think that there's going to be an attempt by his defense attorney to provide a ton of mitigation on his behalf. Mitigation meaning, like I said, maybe he was going through some sort of mental health crisis. If I'm his attorney, I'm going to get him mentally evaluated and try to get some sort of psychologist or psychiatrist to draft a report to the judge to say, look, you may think that he intended to do X, Y, and Z, but he wasn't in his right mind. Please be lenient on him for this. The way the family feels about it is going to affect how he gets punished as well. Some might argue that the family has lost him long enough already. They want him home. Prison is not going to bring him home. So there are options there.
I thought where it seems they might have a really strong case is the idea of restitution to Green Lake County for the search efforts here. And this is something we've seen before in other cases of false reporting or fake crimes or staged attacks or staged crimes. That part can't be ignored. The time and the expense, the wages, the cost of searching for him, for investigating what they thought was an actual crime or an accidental death.
That's totally legitimate. A lot of times in criminal cases, you hear that restitution is really not a criminal remedy. It's more of a civil remedy. And so, for example, if somebody assaults somebody else and that person has medical needs and medical bills that they need to pay, a lot of times you can't, not that you can't, but it's really unlikely to get restitution from the perpetrator. But in federal cases and in cases where you defraud the government and the government is out money, you better bet that they seek restitution in those cases.
So they also said, the sheriff also said he would not comment on federal charges, but do you see that as a possibility here? What would federal charges look like?
Yes, I do think there's a possibility for federal charges because we did learn through this investigation that he had taken out an insurance policy, a life insurance policy on himself for the benefit of his family. I think it was something in the area of $375,000.
Yep.
And that's a lot of money. And obviously he didn't die. And obviously he faked his death. And I believe that the insurance policy was taken close in time to his disappearance. If the feds are interested and they have an appetite to go after him for this, I do think that they could charge him with insurance fraud, because if he intended to fake his death in order to benefit his family so that they could get money illegally, I mean, that money is not legally obtained if he's still alive, then yes, I believe
That's so
it would qualify.
Because in other words, abandoning your family, if you didn't stage a crime, you didn't engage in insurance fraud, picking up, leaving, going to another country to start a new life without telling your family, that in and of itself is not a crime, right?
It feels like it should be, but it's not.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. If you talk about these potential charges, isn't this going to disincentivize him to not come home?
Absolutely. I think that part of him is already thinking that, even though he's talking a lot more than he should, I do think he's afraid of the repercussions. And I would expect that he's afraid that the repercussions exceed just, disappointment by his community and his family. I think he's got to know that the reason the police are still so aggressively involved in this is because they want to get him back for other reasons than just reuniting him with the family.
I mean, Sheriff Podell has said that that is the focus. The focus of this investigation is to figure out a way to get him to come back. And would there be something where they say, listen, you're facing charges right now. You come back right now, no one's going to get prosecuted. What do you think? You think that's an option?
Police say stuff like that a lot. They can't really make a promise, but they could allude to it. They could oftentimes say like, look, I can't promise that nothing's going to happen to you, but I can tell you this, if you cooperate with us, it's going to go very far in, mitigating the potential repercussions here and the potential jail sentence. They're not necessarily wrong, but it's kind of a sneaky tactic to get him back. And a lot of times people fall for that.
What a story. My gosh. Well, we will see if he decides to come back, if he sends any other videos that are hard to hear. I mean, we'll see. I feel really bad for his family. It's hard to imagine what they're going through, all of this. But Sarena Townsend, thanks so much for breaking it down with us. Good to see you again. Don't be a stranger. Come back here on Sidebar more often.
I shall. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, that is all we have for you right now here on this episode of Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.